So how are we going to exist within these parameters to make sure that they don't swallow us alive? And I think that's what we've got to deal with today. It's like, I've got these walls. Okay, you say you want me locked in them. No, I don't think so. I'm going out. And I'm planting flowers and I'm walking on the beach. And in the meantime, and I hope I'm not runaway talk here, uh, taking note, being conscious that, wow, imagine if you had only this day left. What would you do with it? And you and I both know that bowing down in fear is not the way you want to do that day. And having had a near-death experience, I can tell you that when you're ready to go, you look back, you flash back all of your experiences in life. And I want that flashback to be like, wow, what a journey.
Hi, everyone. It's Candace Craw Goldman, and welcome to another episode of Quantum Realms 2021, where we're exploring consciousness and kind of figuring out how to be human in the year of 2021. And I actually have goosebumps going up and down my body now because I'm getting ready to talk to the one and only who needs no introduction, Patricia Cori. Welcome, Patricia.
Thank you. What a sweetheart. I'm getting them too. Wonderful synchronicity, this one, yeah?
That's amazing. They're still running up and down my legs. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. I've been following you as much as I can over the last weeks and months. And I said it to you privately, but boy, I'm going to say it to you publicly. It is you and people like you, your energy, your positive thinking, and your take no bullshit nonsense that is helping me to get up and go through my days, imagining and creating in my mind and in my heart a better world for my children and my grandchildren. So I'm really excited to hear how we can talk to people out there who might be listening who really could use some help looking through your lens of experience and knowledge to help us move through this crazy time we're living in.
Where do you want me to start?
You know, I don't know. The overview and drill down. The overview, I think maybe you and I both know, people who are in this spiritual path journey, we know the overall perspective of it's all going to be okay. We are infinite and unlimited beings, and in the end, all is going to be well. But gosh darn it all, how can we make it better as we go down this timeline that we seem to be on, where the world has gone nuts?
Boy, I wish I could wave a magic wand and have a beautiful answer that fits all the parameters. But the bottom line is, a lot of people don't know that it's going to be okay. And that's where we need to start. It's just a lot of people are getting suicidal now and giving away everything to the power, the government. And so I personally don't look to the future of it's going to be okay. I look to the moment of it is okay. Oh my God, look at how beautiful, what a day today. And knowing that it could be your last day, we more than ever before need to really bring home the wonderful spiritual wisdom of being in the now moment. And it's become cliche because it's used often, and I wonder if it's used with the same intensity that we need to use it today, which is we really don't know how far the nut jobs that are in control are going to blast off this planet. And so my approach to life has always been, and never like now, just, it starts with being okay that you've got this day, and that projecting into the future of it's going to be okay robs you of loving this day, robs you of loving the earth. robs you of everything that you need to do to celebrate that you are alive this day. And that's a miracle. And as much as possible, we need to, I'll tell you what, my mother, who was my mentor and great light, used to say to me when I was younger, you need to shrink your world, honey. You worry too much. And I said, well, I'm sorry, I have a real problem not caring about people starving to death and, being in the ebullient revolutionary that I thought I was. But she was right. And so part of me is always dedicated to helping others and serving as best I can. And I think that in answer to your question, it's a time for us to really focus on how we can make our immediate world more joyous. And it starts with celebrating what you've got. And as far as if it's going to be okay, well, it may not, right? It may not be okay in the terms that people think. That being everything's going to be okay and people are going to either get their shot or they're not, and we're going to live in harmony and bliss and the government will back off. Maybe not for a while. So how are we going to exist within these parameters to make sure that they don't swallow us alive? And I think that's what we've got to deal with today. It's like, I've got these walls. Okay, you say you want me locked in them. No, I don't think so. I'm going out. And I'm planting flowers and I'm walking on the beach. And in the meantime, and I hope I'm not runaway talk here, taking note, being conscious that, wow, imagine if you had only this day left. What would you do with it? And you and I both know that bowing down in fear is not the way you want to do that day. And having had a near-death experience, I can tell you that when you're ready to go, you look back, you flash back all of your experiences in life. And I want that flashback to be like, wow, what a journey. Not, oh my God, I was so afraid and never going to come. So how do we cope is, number one, really, really addressing how you manage fear and fearlessness. I think maybe that's the ultimate answer to your question.
I think you may be right. I think the thing that is most bothersome for me personally, and I find that I'm often the minority, depending on what group I'm in, is the reaction to some of this fear is a little bit, I spend a lot of time with animals, so I do a lot of comparing about what they do to protect themselves and stand their ground, and when they do some things. And one of the things that animals do when they feel overwhelmed, controlled, or it's kind of over, is they just roll over and give up their belly and their soft side, and they just wait for the inevitable. And I'm seeing that in humanity, and it's making me nuts. It's making me absolutely insane because I'm not like that. I've seen tiny little creatures attacked by very big creatures. And if they throw their claws and their ferocity enough, basically their will to live. If their will to live is present and communicated with enough gusto, they back off these bigger things,
That's right.
And it's the rolling over and showing the belly that is, for people like me, for people like you, we're told or we know, well, that's kind of their choice and you can't tell them not to do that. And, there's some of those things going on, but seeing that in my immediate circumstance, how do you deal with that?
When you say how do you deal with that? You're talking about people in fear?
Yeah, if you are in a situation somewhere where it's overwhelmingly the belly being shown when inside you're nowhere near that. What do you do?
Well, you know me well enough to know that I'm sort of a big bear when I need to be. I don't allow bullying in my life. I stand up to tyranny. And whether that's an individual or a government or whatever, I just don't allow it. So therefore, up until this moment, it hasn't touched me. And then as far as the bowing down to fear people, well, I look at them and I feel I hate to use the word pity because that has connotates a sense of superiority, but I feel compassion to a point, but I'm no longer interested in convincing anyone because, and this is really important. I think it's time to just say, okay, I do what I can for community. I'm out there all the time, as you know, at social. I've managed not to get kicked off of the air yet. And in my immediate world, like the other day, I was at the grocery store. Here, you have to wear a mask to go into the store. And there was a woman, she was about 75, and she was gray, 2 masks on. And she was leaning up against the wall. And I said to her, oh, she barely spoke English. I said, you need to breathe. And she went, huh? She was outside the store, okay? Take off your mask and breathe. And she just looked at me. She goes, but it's dangerous. I said, it's dangerous not to breathe. And look at me. She took off her mask and we had a giggle. And I thought, maybe that one moment helped her think about it. No doubt she put it back right back on. But the point is here, we need to do what we can for the other, stand up to tyranny and stand up to aggressive persons. And unlike the dog that'll roll over and say, okay, rub my belly, I can't cope. We're in a situation where it's coming from so many places that it's bullying, right? It's bullying in many ways. And I don't roll over for bullies. I stand up tall. Because the other thing that animals do is expand. Look at the insects with all these paraphernalia that they expand, and some of those spiders with all those extra eyes, the bear. And that's how I cope. It's like, yeah, watch out. Don't mess with me. Standing up to tyranny and bullying, and finding it works for me. I think we all have our way to represent ourselves. But one thing we cannot do, we cannot bow down. Because if you bow down, and by the way, I hate to be vulgar, but they're already doing anal swabs in China. You want to bow down? How much further would you like to bow down to the power? So my attitude is stand up, make yourself heard, and everybody has to figure out how that will be so that they face their dragons. But for me, it's like, you're going to have to take me, my corpse, to do anything that we don't need to discuss. We all know what we're talking about. To me, you will have to do it into my dead corpse. So I know exactly where I stand. And I really mean it. I'm very happy to sacrifice the physical life. If the alternative is doing something like that I will refuse to do, then do it in my dead corpse. I'll let you know when I'm jumping off the boat.
Bless you, because again, knowing that you align with the way I feel about this, exactly. It helps me to keep this energy up. I too am no longer really interested in, there for a while, there was some trying to share of information to help. I'm done with that completely, but I do find that people are coming to me and asking me some questions. This concept that you brought up about not accepting bullying, that is so dear to my heart, and that's the way I feel. And I know that I feel that in any place that I have to go where somebody might approach me, I am already hearing things in my own mind that you just said, is just don't mess with me. Just don't mess with me.
That's right.
Because I'm not playing your game and not going to do it. And I'm not going to make eye contact with you. And I don't want to mess with you. I'm just going to get my thing done. But let's just, it's like a force field that comes with you. And you know what? So far, not once has anybody anything. And I actually was in a store. It was just yesterday. I was wearing this sweater. And that's part of the story, believe it or not. I walk in and a woman, she's wearing a mask and she's just walking directly up to me, and I'm looking at her and I don't get but she's coming, she's locked in and she's walking right up to me. And I'm wondering, what is it she gonna say? And is she gonna say something about a mask? Cause she's all decked out in one. She says, where'd you get your sweater? I mean, there was a part of me that I didn't feel like I was gonna get into a thing. Her eyes didn't show it that way, but I had no idea why somebody, and why not? Why? Because I didn't get her whole face. I didn't get her whole facial expressions, because we don't get those anymore, right? Yeah. I mean, I got her energy, I got her eyes, and it felt okay, but it was so direct, and I had just walked into the store, so I, the circumstance, I thought she might, and I'm just almost bewildered. I couldn't even remember almost at that point. I was like, well, some boutiques somewhere, but probably not here in rural Kansas. Probably somewhere else where there's that. And she laughed, and we had a little giggle and moved on. But as far as the whole face coverings thing goes, I actually I put one on once. I had to go to a medical appointment with a family member that was very, very important. And even though if it would have just been me, I would have put up the stink. The person I had to go with the medical appointment was in such a state that I didn't want stress. He needed no more stress. No more stress did he need. So for the very first time ever, I put this thing on. And it was brief. And once we got in, I took it off and all of that. But on the way out, because we were in the medical reception, and it wasn't even a mask, it was a bandana, because I won't buy one, won't wear one, won't any of that. I had a bandana. And I was okay about even the situation I was in, which was stressful. I was okay, and things were okay. And my eyes welled up with tears, and my throat got full when I saw an exchange between two people there at this medical establishment. And that was a woman who was checking out, and the receptionist was talking to her. And at one point, the receptionist just stopped and said, I just love your mask. I think it had sparkles on it or something. And the tears came. The tears just came.
Yeah. The indoctrination, the fact that people don't recognize this, so many people don't recognize the indoctrination program here, it still does, it befuddles me completely. But we know why, we know how these people are being mind controlled. But you would think after 1 year, they would start to question the fact that they are now regularly walking around bound to this ridiculous servitude symbol and fighting with the other because of it. And it's just, it's something that should bring you to tears. And seeing the children, seeing dolls with masks on them, I just, I live on this little island, and it is such a glorious day today. It's just, spring has sprung. And we have to wear the masks inside. So, for example, you can go to a restaurant, but when you walk in, you have to have the mask on. But when you sit down, you can take the mask off to eat. So I asked the waiter, so do these germs not travel vertically? And it's my idea is to just seed as much as possible without creating a war, And he said, well, these are the rules that we have to follow. I said, I'm just curious if you recognize how ridiculous it is that at this level, I have to have the mask, and at this level, I don't. And yet it's the most infectious thing on planet Earth.
Yeah.
But here, with the exception of the grocery store where I do wear the mask because I can't get in otherwise, I have a system. I go past the guard at the door, because now they have a guard to make sure you're masked. And they have the station, which I have never, ever put any of this crap on my hands, okay? I go in, hello. The minute I get in, I slip the mask down to just over my lips, because I can't breathe. I really just don't know how people can be wearing it all day. And then I go about my business. And when I come to the checkout, I'm still standing in line like this. And then the woman looks at me because they're wiping down the checkout thing, the machine, the credit card, every time, every new customer. So I'll slip it back a little bit. So in essence, I'm wearing this thing completely about 3 minutes.
Yeah. Every
10 days. I'm willing to do that just to not have hysteria. But other than that, I know how bad it is for me for 3 minutes to have that on with no air. And I need a lot of prana, man. So Here's the most beautiful air. We were told that we have the second best air at a certain point on the island in the world. This ocean fresh air, and you're covering yourself up with all this goop. But people are going to do what one of my expressions is: people do what they want to do. And it all boils down to, if you want to be subservient to fear, you want to allow that vibration to be your vibration. And if you want to start thinking about what it means and how you're going to be a better human being, live a better life, because we don't know how long this is going to last. Why would the power stop? Right? Global obedience. What would there be the reason to say, okay, it's all better now, you can go back to work, unless they accomplish crushing all the global economy and whatever first. Regardless, stand up to the bully, go about your life, get as much air as you can, step on the soil, get some back, because the elimination of bacteria and germs, quote unquote, is so unhealthy. So every day I walk out on the lawn barefoot, and the other day I stepped in dog poop. That wasn't my favorite part of it, but even that, just wash it off and move on. And we know you were saying about it goes out into your aura when we were talking about bullying, and it's like my auric field says, don't mess with this woman, and it's with a smile. Yes. It's not aggressive, it's with a smile. This is out to here, don't even think about coming into my sphere, and it just doesn't come in. And it's really part of what we've been doing all of our lives, studying spirituality, is to expand the energy field, and it's show and tell time. So in a way, it's wonderful. This is a test of our spiritual might.
I love that, show and tell time, because we talk about energy. What you put out comes back. What you put out comes back. It's pretty basic. And what you were speaking about earlier about the now moment, and yes, gosh, the phrases, they can get to be so trite after a while. But the point I like to keep in mind and remember and illustrate is, the Native Americans, when they needed moisture from the sky, where they would do, the rain dance. And we as non-Native Americans, as we're listening to them, might think that they're asking for rain as they are doing their dance. And actually the wording is completely different. The wording is, I feel the water going over my body. It feels so wonderful to have this moisture in my life. They're actually projecting the energy of rain and being thankful for it, even while their feet are on the parched earth with the dust clouds coming up. Wow. So this is, I try to keep that image in mind as I go about my day. And I think that might be helpful for this idea of the energy and giving yourself a moment. But I also think, don't you think, Patricia, that sometimes it's okay, like when I was in that reception area, to cry? It's okay to grieve, because there's a grief process involved in what has happened in the last year and a half. I wonder if last year and a little bit, I wonder if you might speak to that grieving that some of us might be feeling.
Well, that's a pretty profound observation. We are in grief, and some of us are feeling this grief as a personal loss, and others are grieving for humankind, grieving for the planet. And I believe that grief is the most dangerous emotion, from the point of view that if you don't let it move through you, and in my years as a healer, I've seen it time and time again, if grief gets stuck, it turns into cancer, right? Yeah. And in working on people, when I was doing psychic crystal healing, I would find these black spots and take the person through the memory, and sure enough, something got frozen there, some grief that was never expressed. So I think it's important to be in touch with your emotion and feel everything. Allow yourself to feel everything, but rebel against fear, because the fear that people are feeling is being perpetrated. It's being imposed. It's conditioning them from a system that knows that if they can keep us in fear, they've got us by the short tail. Okay. So feel everything, but my God, when you start slipping into the fear that you're not going to survive, or that you can't breathe, go outside, and the germs are out there, and people are going to infect you, it's really, that is an emotion that you've got to somehow rein in. That is one that I don't suggest you go all the way through and feel it. It's like, hear yourself, and think. Because even a lot of spiritual people are falling for this, all right? A lot of people that you would think were wise enough to question. There's so much BS going on right now. It's very difficult for people to grab onto what to believe, what to trust. And it's just coming from the spiritual people, the truth community, the alternative. The Dalai Lama sitting there with a mask on saying, I'm taking my shot. I just broke my heart. And then, people are saying, is that maybe that's a clone? And you know what? We're in the fourth dimension here, and everything goes. But the ultimate message I have for people is, if it makes you feel fear, turn away. Go to the place that makes you feel empowered.
Yeah.
If somebody's giving you a rap about their message from beyond, question it. Are they giving you a message that makes you feel empowered, or is the message empowering them? Right? This is across the board. And my message is empowering others. And I rebel against anyone whose message is, I know the way, so listen up, as you and I were intimating earlier.
I saw your video about the Dalai Lama, and you had this profound connection. And although I do not have a similar connection, but the way, that was a public grieving.
Yeah.
And I cried with you. I did. I was like, and I don't think that's going to be the last one for you or for me. I'm watching myself go through a little bit of that. People or figures that I had imagined were more aligned with the way I felt about things are falling away. And that really brings you back always to yourself, right? Always to right here. And this word, as you were talking about, spiritual people falling for it, we use this word in our community, don't we? Discernment. We use this word discernment. And I think discernment is just this, I think it's a concept for a lot of people, and they don't actively understand what that is or how to use it. Maybe could you talk about that a little bit? I think people think they're being discerning and they're just doing a mental gyration or something. Doesn't discernment work on a bigger level than that? It does for me.
It does for me too, because also I'm blessed with a very powerful intuitive guidance that I've had all my life. And so I can look at something, and this is not in any way trying to impress anybody. I can usually just get an immediate hit about something, say, walk away from this. This feels good. And then sometimes my left brain will say, give it a chance. Don't just block this out. And it's always wrong. So as far as discernment goes, I have that gut. We all have a gut reaction. And it's a matter of degrees, how many people are more in touch with that than others, and how they work with that energy and that being, that capacity. But if it's not strong and you're being volleyballed with information coming at you, the first thing you want to do as far as discernment goes, because right now I'm hearing like, well, so-and-so said this. I go, well, gee, it must be right then. Well, Patricia, why are you saying that if so-and-so said this? I go, because this is my understanding. And whenever I say anything, I say my understanding, in my opinion, my perception, not this is the truth.
Yeah.
And I've had some exchanges with some of these people. Well, this is the truth. It's really? I'm getting people telling me they're getting truth in their dreams. Your dream is your dream. It's not my truth. So my message to people is, first of all, dissect what you're hearing. And if it's coming from that place where somebody's declaring to know the truth, Take another look.
Yeah.
If somebody's saying to you, I understand, this is a possibility, pay attention. But if it's coming from that place of I know the truth and you don't, I mean, let's use, for example, the Mr. T volleyball game, right? And all these truthers saying, there's this, the game is on and get your popcorn. And I recently did a video that said, trust the plan? I think so. People I have noticed that I've got a cop an attitude when needed. Plan. Oh, me. I trust my understanding. I trust my examining. Trust the plan.
Yeah.
If it's right, but do we have a plan B in case it isn't? And so to this question, it's like discernment is really just taking the time to step back. Is it ego conscious driven? Which a lot of it out there, boy. Does it empower you? Does the information empower you, or is it something like I want to be very careful not to name any names, but someone saying, sorry, I'm waiting for an important call from so and so on the air, and I'm like, oh please, can we have the little drum roll, please? Because if in fact you are in contact with higher ups from whether it's channeled, whether it's government, whether it's whatever, have the class to say, I need to come off the air for the moment because I feel like I'm getting some information that I need. No, it's drama, it's show. So discern, watch out for the show, watch out for people telling you they know the truth, because to be honest, we all know the truth at some level.
Sure.
Right? But nobody declaring that they alone have the truth is of interest to me. And by all means, if someone empowers you, find out, investigate, run it through your heart. Does it feel right? This is the kind of person I want to listen to. And then, my dear Candace, in the end, you got to do the work yourself. Yep. And one of the ways to do this is, by the way, to screen out 90% of the stuff. I just get in touch with what makes you feel joy.
Yep.
I haven't had any television for 25 years. I do as much as I can to screen out a lot of the gobbledygook and still be able to be with you today, and to do this kind of work together with people that I respect. And you're one of them, of course.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so excited now. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about this concept. And by the way, and this is what I was doing right before we got online. I was signing up for your DNA course.
Oh, yay, thank you.
I'm so excited about it. I just sort of really looked into it, and I want you to talk about that a little bit, but maybe even in conjunction with the larger question, which is this. So there are people who follow channels like this who are all about ascension and what that means. And of course that, you could speak hours on that, but I think there's some question about moving through these particular times and what you can do focused on that, because there are those who are saying that some of what is happening or being subjected to humans will block their ascension. There are a lot of people absolutely fearful of that, whether it's from the jab or in other ways of bringing vibration down. I wonder if you could talk about, your offerings. They're not just here, right? They're energetic. You have some activations, and this is a different thing than just words on paper and facts and things like that.
Oh, absolutely. It's experience. The course that I created, which is a real labor of love. It took me a long time to create that course. It's full of activations. There is activation with solfeggio frequencies, is deep meditation, states of meditation, light. There's a download from the Sirian High Council with these lights that is just like, it's just an amazing experience. And the point is that, I don't think that anything to do with ascension is cerebral. I think it's experiential. So, people are offering courses and trainings, and my idea is, yeah, this is all about experiential, light, sound, music, intention, visualization, but at another level. So when I did that workshop, I've been teaching DNA activation. Actually, I think I was the first person to ever offer DNA activation because I was doing it 25 years ago, right? And then all of a sudden, it was the catchword for just about everything. So I've got kind of a long experience at it, and I've seen so thousands of people shift when I bring them through that process, shift notably where they're spinning and having wonderful experience. And I don't think that you question if you're activating or not, if you really are. For example, somebody said to me, why would I take your course, Patricia? I mean, I just went through it. Somebody just activated my strands. And I said, oh, great. So I've got 12 strands activated. And I said, well, then you're Jesus Christ.
Right.
And he said, what do you mean? I said, the fully Christed being has 12 activated strands. So somebody just waved a wand and poof, you've got it. He said, well, yeah, they activated me. And I said, guess what, sweetheart? The only person who's going to activate you is you. And, there are guides, there are ways that you can be activated, or what am I trying to say?
Supported, maybe, or
Yeah, no, even more guided and
yeah,
experientially guided
yeah.
with sound. And solfeggio frequency is what I use in this video. But nobody just does poof, you're activating. Come on, let's get a little bit more grounded here. And with the whole question of activation and ascension, but what I'm doing with people is taking them to the activation of the star Merkaba inside the cellular structure. So it's the Drumvalo technique of the Merkabic field outside, only recreating this six-sided Merkaba at the cellular level. And it is, it's quite extraordinary. And it stops there because the Syrians said, when the Earth is not ready to hold a 12-stranded DNA frequency in individuals. You're fooling yourself. And this, again, is just my opinion, all right? If you think you've got 12, somebody once told me they had 144 strands, so why should they take my course? And I said, you shouldn't. You should not. The only question is, why are you still using a computer? Yeah, the course takes people to the six strands, because according to the Syrian High Council, the idea that you get two is incorrect. They say that when you activate a third strand, that's the most important activation you do, because you create triangulation at the DNA level. So in other words, you weave in a third strand and you create a tetrahedral form. And that is the resolution of duality, because the double helix is an absolute personification of duality. So you weave in this third strand, and that's the first activation in my course. And you create triangulation, and it resolves the duality and a polarization. And then the second part of the course is the last activation. You bring in the mirror of that, altogether another three-stranded structure of DNA that you bring in. So that's 6, okay, and they weave together. It's really very beautiful and very powerful. And one thing to be doing for oneself now, in the midst of all this darkness, to be working on your own light, to be illuminating your DNA. And speaking of DNA, yes, I agree that if you take the jab, it's a question of what will happen to you as far as your ability to ascend. I do, because they're putting in, oh boy, I don't know if we can get away with saying this on the air. Do your homework and find out what they're putting in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the homework part that's really interesting to me. A lot of people don't care to or dismiss it or whatever. But again, I'm not really That road's been covered many, many times, and the information is available. All you have to, it takes very little effort to find additional information that isn't broadcast through bullhorns, across the world from.
And I'd like to add to that, that a lot of people, a lot of very, very talented, credible doctors and scientists are putting their lives on the line.
Yeah, they are.
To get that information out to people. So it surprises me that more people aren't willing to at least listen carefully. And if your decision is what it is, then you have it's your responsibility to take care of yourself, because forget the government doing that.
Yeah.
When you were speaking at the beginning about, being human in 2021, it starts with forget giving your power away to anybody else. You're it, baby.
Yeah.
You are it. Trying to be grown-ups now. Your life is on the line. And so it's not just your spiritual ascension on the line. It's your life is on the line. Your health is on the line. Stand up tall.
Yeah, and your children and your grandchildren, your whole progeny. I mean, this is we're on the precipice here, the cusp. What happens now, I love the way you described it, show and tell time. This is show and tell time.
It is.
Absolutely. This is why you are here. And in the work that I do with quantum healing in the trance state, so often clients will repeat the phrase that, we were born for this. We waited in line to participate in this, that there were people who, basically the tickets were already sold when they wanted to get in, and we are here. So what are you going to do with that? Are you really going to roll over? I'm not. I'm just not going to do that. And this idea that government or the controllers are this benevolent force, it takes the smallest look back into history to see that the people who really felt that was true paid the ultimate price. So just think about that. There's nothing magical about the fact that that we're in the time that we are that has changed what happens to those who wish to control us. Not at all.
Indeed. And the idea that we came in here for this, I always tell people, I thought maybe I was drunk on nectar and on Mount Olympus playing with the gods. But yeah, I think that life is the most exciting when we overcome obstruction and obstacles. And that many of us, starseed, came here to do that. It was like not so much the big war, but the big opportunity to experience the ultimate power of self, of consciousness, of creation. And so to serve, first of all, to overcome the obstruction and win, and secondly, to co-create the new that comes after. And I got the goosebumps for that one. I bet you did too.
Oh, I absolutely did. I wrote down a word, which is this thing that's happening even right now as we're speaking, I believe, is this horizontal connection, right? You are this light. You are this force. I am this light. I have my own force. And those of us who are meeting in this horizontal way, not in a, you're my teacher, you're my guru, I will look up to you, I will do all what you say, but this way. We meet this way. And as we are all meeting this way, we become brighter and more powerful and more able to support more people. And that's one of the reasons that I'm doing this series of quantum realms at all, is because I think in various ways, if you can meet other people like this, without needing the hierarchical power top-down thing that has happened to us for God knows how long, millennia. There's power in that. There's power on meeting in that way.
The ultimate power. And in some ways, when I was grieving about the Dalai Lama, I thought, well, okay, it's time for us to lose the gurus. He was never my guru, but I had a connection. I have a connection to Tibetan Buddhism, and I have a connection that no longer is there. And as I said in the interview, I still respect what was, but I can no longer hold inspiration from this individual. And, it's a wonderful lesson, isn't it? It's like because people are throwing him under the bus and saying he was a child molester and a Satanist. And it just breaks my heart because, hey, wait a minute, let's not throw this individual under the bus. He's done so much in his lifetime, in his many lifetimes, I imagine. And whether or not that got corrupted, or whether or not it got corrupted and somebody didn't get corrupted, but they put in a clone, we may never know. But all I know is that it no longer can inspire me because of what I was faced with in that photograph. And that's something that we need to learn, is that we don't need gurus to teach us the way. I've never followed anyone. Rather, does this person inspire me? Is this energy that touches me? And like you said, on a horizontal way, which is beautifully said. And do I have something to share here? I don't want to be better than anyone else, nor do I want to follow anyone else. I'm here. Hello. And I loved when you said, I think you might have said it privately, that your no bullshit approach. And that is absolutely who I am. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of the drama. I'm tired of the egos and the whole shtick. It's show and tell time. It's time to get real. And what's happening is a lot of these false heroes and evangelists and gurus are falling because people are faced with themselves like they've never been before. And in the plethora of information that's coming out, it's just like, this feels right, but this doesn't. And people are bouncing all over the place trying to find their truth. And so, yeah, they need to feel worthy, to feel valued, to feel equal. To feel equal. We're in this together. We're trying to find it out. I don't care if you came from Arcturus. He actually said to me, well, Patricia, Arcturus is a higher dimension than
Oh my God.
dimension. So I prefer to follow that. I go, good, enjoy yourself. Just remember that there is no linear thinking in the higher dimensions. That's a 3D construct.
Yeah.
And, little by little, we're letting go a lot of this stuff because we have no choice. We have to be real. We are in real soup at this time.
My God, are we ever? I love that phrase. It's okay to no longer be inspired. It's funny, people think that sometimes following someone or being inspired by someone for a while means like, a marriage contract, like that it's easy for me to no longer be inspired by some people. And I don't mean to sound like I'm being fickle, because I'm human and I've changed my mind about a number of things, and I've grown in a number of areas and switched perspectives on a number of things. I'm going to be 60 later on this summer, and I've had plenty of opportunity to do that. But it's also okay to say, yeah, I'm kind of, I can't listen to that anymore, and I'm going to extricate myself. I don't care who you are or what your credentials were or who you say you could do or what you know. I'm removing myself from that energy. And
and the important thing is to not then throw the person under the bus.
Exactly.
I no longer am inspired by what you have to say, but thank you for what you contributed to my life. Exactly. But I don't resonate with it. And it's also another big one is it's okay to say, oops, I was wrong. Sorry. Right?
Yeah.
Because it just seems to me nobody wants to do that. It's like coming off on this position and then finding 8 million reasons. It's like, it was wrong. Sorry. And in my understanding at the time, it was this. And like my understanding at the time resonated with you, but it doesn't anymore. So thank you for everything you gave me until then. And it's also not because there's something wrong with the individual, but because you grow out of things. You find other truths and what resonated for you a year ago. And it should be that way because we're growing, right?
That's exactly right. Maybe your 144 strand person will have a revelation or something sometime.
But I thought it was so cute. But
it is kind of sweet. It is kind of sweet. And, I can imagine growing out of something like that. I hope this It does. Well, it's the whole cancel culture thing, right? Nobody wants to be wrong because they don't want to be canceled in this whole, thing, which is nutty. It's just nutty. I don't completely understand it, but it's kind of.
It's an orchestration. I mean, when Dr. Seuss is canceled, you realize there's nothing to understand here. This is a methodical destruction of laughter, humor,
Yes.
culture, history, humanity, camaraderie, empowerment, because Dr. Seuss's books empower children
Yes, they
to
did.
find their truth. No, I won't eat green eggs and ham. I will not eat them on a bus. I will not, right? And instead, they're being fed teaching children how to have sex at 4. In the schools, they're going in with sex education for kindergartners. That's what they want the human race to do, to be prepared to have no love, just carnal behaviors, especially the children. They're after the children. Take out laughter and giggling and fun and playing. Take out music studies and drama and sports, and just drill in whatever the, it's really very totalitarian. And I don't know why I'm getting up on this track. What were you talking about? Cancel culture.
Yeah.
I have a very low tolerance for that. And you read it, and of course, the more absurd it is, because every day it's like, what can we cancel today? Oh, Pepe Le Pew. It's sexual, but they like sexual in their terms, right? Let's take away all of the sweetness and innocence of those things. And it's a very pathetic moment as far as that's concerned. So I always tell people, stick to your guns. Get your library full, especially with children. Make sure you've got the entire Dr. Seuss collection, because that's genius. Dr. Seuss is genius.
It most certainly was.
I don't want to one day find out that I can't read Green Eggs and Ham if I want to, even though it's probably memorized. But yeah, cancel culture is a part of the regime that wants to destroy civilization as we under freedom is not popular with these people.
No. And there's just such a division absolutely everywhere. I wonder a couple of things about this idea of division, and it's happening everywhere, every community, every walk of life, every family, even there's this division happening. And those people who would more aligned to some of the things that we're talking about right now, some of them, especially some of them new to spirituality and this path, as it were, they are terribly concerned about their family members who are nowhere near seeing anything that they are, even if, again, they're brand new to this stuff. What do you say to those people who they don't know what to do about that? They don't even know how to frame that in their own hearts.
That is a very difficult question to answer. For starters, get to nature.
Yeah.
Get out to nature as much as you can, especially with your children. Get them walking in a forest where you can get away with it without, where I live, you see, I don't have this. We don't have this hysteria here. We don't. What's in place here is you got to wear the mask inside the grocery store. And I can do that. But we have normal lives, and it's hard for me to really get my head around how grave it is in the US and in England, because I'm not witness to it. But they'd have to take me fighting before I would not be allowed to go walking in the forest with my child. If ever, and of course I've been screaming forever, get out of the cities.
Yeah.
As soon as you can, if it's possible, relocate. And I'm still telling people this, grab your children and get into a rural environment. And you need to do that quickly if you are capable of it, which at this moment we've been reprogrammed to be working at home. So many people are now working through their computers that it's very doable. So my recommendation is take as many steps as you can to ward off the obstruction that's being placed on your freedom. And that means if you're in a city, can you move? Is it doable?
Mhm.
And yeah, you have to sacrifice. Well, I was going to say you have to sacrifice the restaurants and the
Uh-huh.
movies, but they're closed anyway.
Yeah.
What's
What's
the
the point?
fun? It's like opportunity is knocking at the door. You could take your job with you. You don't have to worry about not having any restaurants. There aren't any anyway. Consider finding a place where, like, I keep looking over here because I've got this view to die for, and there are birds making their nests because it's the first day of spring, and I just love that my vision and my view is nature. I don't look at somebody's roof. I look at nature, and as much as possible, that's where you're going to get your calm. That's where you're going to get nourished. That's where you're going to get the microbes you need to keep your immunity strong, and the children need to play in the dirt.
Yes.
Get them out of those masks and plastic and gloves and show them. And a lot of the children are convinced they have to have this. Poor sweethearts. And show them they don't have to be afraid. You've got to do something for the children. My God.
A whole generation, well, all the generations and the elderly. I'm so grateful that I have my 90-year-old dad at home. I fed him flown in fresh diver sea scallops yesterday I made him that for dinner with some roasted asparagus. And I set that down for the best restaurant in this part of the state, as far as I'm concerned, is my own kitchen. And I set that down and I'm sitting having dinner with him. Just so pleased that he's there. It's quite a commitment, and I am a primary caregiver. But, I looked up at him and we actually even had a conversation. I said, if you were in some stinking caregiver home, you would never have any kind of dinner like this. You'd have something microwaved with a little thing of, some sort of pill thing that would get you to go to sleep, that would get you out of everyone's hair. And, I'm honored and blessed to have my dad at home when so many others are separated from their parents and grandparents right now, which is still,
And he's so blessed to have you.
He's my guy though. Both of my parents, they were nuts, actually. I mean, they were wild, and they were loud, and they were boisterous. And my mom got through Nazi Germany, and she told her stories, and that runs through my blood. And my dad saw through the bullshit of the Vietnam War. And for the longest time, even into my 30s and beyond, I thought he was sort of the rantings of a kind of a crazy old man. Oh no, he saw through it all. And he was there in the Air Force as a fighter pilot. And he saw through it, not just boots on the ground, but he saw through the whole setup. He's like, why would they do that? Of course, he didn't quite realize that he was just seeing the lower echelon of control. He kind of focused on personalities, right? And now we know that it's much higher than this. The dictates came from much, much higher, but both of my parents saw through this kind of bullshit, and they weren't having any of it. And they threw caution to the wind all over the place to make my mother hid in the bottom of the floor of a Jeep of an American officer to cross out of Germany and get into.
Wow.
I mean, she was just astonished. She stopped her stepmother and family from actually committing suicide to get out of the situation that they were in. And they were not Jewish, but they were still in a terrible way, and caught up in it all and didn't want it anymore. And she basically took all of their poison and threw it away and said, I'll come back for you. And she was doing all of this at quite a young age. And that runs in my DNA. And she's no longer here to see it, but I can hear her talking to me. I can hear her talking to me from the other side of the veil. And she's like, that's just when this happened. And she'll like put images in my mind of things she's had to deal with, and very much along the lines of Are you supposed to be here? Show me your papers. Those kinds of things, you know? And when I bring that up, and sometimes to some people, they think I'm exaggerating, right? And I don't think so. I just don't think so. But so I feel very empowered by my ancestry in that way.
Well, there's nothing exaggerated about it. In Israel, they now have a card that you can't get into restaurants or public places unless you've had the vaccine, and without the vaccine you don't get the card. And now they're talking about it for all of Europe, and this is the writing on the wall.
Yeah.
So unless people rebel against it,
Yep.
it is going to be put in place. And I'm all for the rebelling against it. And, you know, it's interesting also, the universe does seem to be helping out because, for example, in Europe, they just can't get their shit together on how to distribute this stuff. So they never have enough. And then they've got, you know, I don't know how many tons of it when got warm. And so they had to throw them out. And then there's this one that's, you know, paralyzing people, and it's a mess.
It is a mess.
So I don't know how quickly they're going to be able to do that. But we will deal with each phase as it comes in. And fortunately, there are people that are committed to waking people up. Yeah. And, you know, then there's the very tragic aspect, and that is the people who are avowed, absolute followers of fashion, watching people die or be maimed, paralyzed. I mean, how many of these doctors have you seen that were all for it and they're dead on arrival? Right? And their families are saying, oh my God, please listen. So I think there's going to be a turn in this tide, and that this plan is not going to work out.
I really do too. So I'd kind of like to end it by asking you this question. You know, you're known for the new Sirian Revelations and your communication with these beings. Do they speak to you about what's going on right now? And if so, what's the message from that collective?
Right. So the channel material, the new Sirian Revelations, was 3 years ago.
Yes.
And since then, we've had some very private exchanges. I started channeling something and then it stopped because I was doing something else. But the message is, well, here you are. We told you that it would be the fourth dimension would blow your socks off, because the council have always said when you enter into the fourth dimension, it's going to still look a lot like the third dimension. Only time is going to be warping, and most importantly, in other words, when we think of dimension shift, we think of becoming more light-bodied. We have a glorification of what that looks like in New Age spiritual terminology. So ascension is like we're going to sprout wings and we're going to, you know, be light-bodied, loving beings. And the council have always said from day one, and this is nobody else that I know has ever brought this information forward. It's always like the fifth dimension, the fifth, and the council have always said, well, sorry, but there's this small matter of the fourth. And it's not pleasant. It's not going to be easy. Excuse me. And so, you know, people are like, no, the fifth dimension, we're going to the fifth dimension. Like, no, you're going through the fourth. And that is the clearinghouse. And it's not easy because you're going to be facing the karma of all civilization of all time on planet Earth. All the good and all the destruction, all the wars, all the evil, all the genius, all together. So there's good and bad polarized karma, not only your own, but of the entire race, the entire species. And it's going to be rough because it's going to be all at once, happening all at once. And it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. It's like pumping up a tire on a bicycle, right? And that's what they communicate with me is now that you're in, because at the time of that writing, they were saying that we were fluttering. It was fluttering in and off, in and around the third dimension. Now we're in it. And that's one of the most important messages people need to know. We are now in the fourth dimension, according to the Sirian High Council. All right. And so that means insanity like we've never known it, because we have so much access to so many realms. The astral layers are bleeding in. We have CERN deliberately rupturing the astral field and bringing in demonic energies. And it's not just some bad guys in Washington or in Switzerland, wherever they hang. It's like the disruption of these astral levels, deliberately bringing in lower D, let's just leave it at that,
Yeah.
beings. And then we have the angelic and the higher. It's just a free-for-all. And the message from the council is deal with it.
Yep.
They're also very practical from the point of view of higher dimensional beings. Deal with it. You came there to deal with it. Deal with it. Nobody's going to rescue you. You got this. So now, how do you turn this mania into a construction that portends to a new evolutionary experience? And in the very first book, The Cosmos of Soul, 25 years ago, one of the first things they said, I think the first paragraph says, there is chaos in, sorry, there is order in chaos.
Yeah. Wow.
And when I first heard that, I thought, I suppose, but never like now. There is order in chaos. We are in chaos, and yet we are finding our power. We're finding our unity. And in the disruption of human interactions, we're also finding out there's no room for superfluous nonsense. We're breaking down the whole mask. And that's why the mask is such a wonderful symbol. The mask that we've worn with each other all these decades is coming down. There's a figurative mask on people's faces, but we are getting rid of the superfluous. We are spending less. We are shopping less. We are using less. It is actually an extraordinary time.
It most certainly is. I still, my favorite times to get messages from my former teacher, Dolores Cannon. She'll just say something in my ear, often when I'm doing something very mundane. This one, I was carrying a basket of laundry. And I thought it was really funny because, remember, I'm carrying.
That sounds like Dolores.
Yeah, I'm just walking from one room to another, carrying a basket of laundry, and in my ear, in her very clear voice, she says, "Hold on to your britches." That's all she said. Hold on to your britches, while I'm carrying laundry, which I just sat down and laughed. It was hysterical, but very much like what you said, in this chaos. And I believe that's, she was just, there was nothing more than that. There was no more images or impressions or anything, but I do believe we are in this chaotic time. This has been.
Can I just add one thing? And from this chaotic moment, we have come to find out who we really are, to show our stuff, to separate the wheat from the chaff, and to define what the spiritual journey truly is. It's like no more fluff now. This is where you're going to find out what you're made out of.
Yep. No more airy fairy. Of course, you've never been airy fairy, and that's what I love about you, Miss Patricia Cori. So this has been a joyous time of connection for you. I feel nourished, spending time in your energy. How can people find you?
Well, if they're interested in the course, my primary website is patriciacori.com. And I also have a pretty active YouTube channel, as you've referred to it. I'm on Facebook too. I'm pretty much out there. You can find me. Just remember to spell my last name Cori, and you can find me. But do come to my website. That's where you get your information about what I'm up to.
All right. And more from you to come. I know. I'm looking forward to some upcoming interviews of yours. Thank you so much, Patricia. All right.
Thank you, and thank you for all the good work you're doing. And my love to your papa.
Oh, thank you so much. All right. Well, that's all for this episode. So stay tuned for another one, Quantum Realms 2021. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.